We're testing the mic. How's that? Is the volume good?
Make sure I hold it close. I'm not used to using this.
Do you want to be my mic tester?
Sure. Okay. And that's Rich Arnold's wife. And that's George. He's now head of the property committee. Is he running? Okay. Is this working? I think it's working. Is it working on 990, Julie? Is it? Okay.
You can hang on to that one, and I'll give this one to Rich. We already tested them all, so.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock and time to get started. And we'll go through our agenda tonight and get you home at a decent hour. I trust we can. And so that's our plan for tonight. Welcome, everybody. And welcome to those who are watching with us on 990 and partaking as well. Tomorrow morning, there'll be some extra sheets, the agenda items, and the piece about the reserve study down at the cabinet down by the administration offices. You can pick one up. We're going to start tonight, like we've done over the last months, is to welcome new folks into our community. So Rianne's been emceeing that, and I'm calling on her to give it a good work here. We've got some great folks again tonight. Like always, it's just delightful. So,
Good evening. We do have a couple that we'd like you to meet tonight. This is Greg and Sarah Stevenson. They moved into 7500 York 6 months ago on August 20th, and we are happy to have them here. Where did you move from when you came here?
We moved from Burnsville, and before that, Iowa.
And what are you retired from?
Retired from, I am a biblical counselor for women, and also I was director of women's ministry at a church.
And you?
I'm a veterinary
Right.
I'm a
close.
veterinary pathologist, and I spent my last 13 years, I guess, at Iowa State in the veterinary diagnostic laboratory, where we trained residents, but mostly did cases for farms all around the country and Mexico and China and on and on and on. And before that, I was on faculty at Purdue for 18 years. So we were in West Lafayette, Indiana during that time that we raised our family. When we moved there, our oldest was in second grade and our youngest was in preschool. We have 3 children, and I'll let Sarah tell you about them.
Okay, Sarah, tell us about your children.
And our 3 adult children live in this area. 2 live in Burnsville, and 1 lives just west of 100 from here, Highway 100. And then we have 9 of our grandchildren in the area, too.
Isn't that exciting?
Good reason, right?
That's exciting, yes.
Which is why we're here. Otherwise, we would have moved south when we retired, not north.
Well, the reason that I wanted you all to meet Greg and Sarah Stevenson is that you have undoubtedly heard a lot about Sarah in the last 5 months, because she is the resident who was leaving the YMCA, pushed the button to come across 76th Street to come home, when a person driving a car into the second lane hit her. The ambulance came, took her to HCMC, and she has spent months recovering. Tell us a little bit about that accident.
I might as well, because Sarah doesn't remember any of it. But I wasn't there for the accident. We were going to go on a bike ride that morning, and I got up too late, or I didn't get up on time to be ready when we said we were going to go. So Sarah was excited. Sarah was excited to try out the weight machines at the Y that she'd just been trained on. So she told me, instead of waiting for me to get ready, she would go to the Y and use the weight machines and then come back. So I got ready slowly, knowing she would take a while, and sat down, and she didn't come back, and she didn't come back, and I really wasn't worried, because I just figured she met 5 or 10 new friends, which she does everywhere, and that she lost track of time, so I was fine with it. And then I got a call from the emergency room at HCMC updating me on my wife's condition, and I didn't know anything had happened. I could have seen it out my window. Our apartment faces the crosswalk on the Y. I'm glad I didn't look out. Anyway, with that information, I called or texted my 3 children, just told them briefly what happened, and then I would meet them at the HCMC emergency room. And then the police knocked on the door, so I got detained for about a half an hour when they were doing reports and wanting to get information from me. By the time I got to HCMC, they had moved her out of emergency surgery and into the surgical acute care unit. So she was in the acute care unit, unconscious for, I guess it would have been 15 days. And we were to the place that they had told us the first 2 weeks were absolutely critical, and that with head trauma of that sort, that if she wasn't responding to voice commands, awake and responding to voice commands consistently, it was a really, really bad prognostic sign, and they would probably recommend that we unplug the ventilator. So we were that night supposed to have a meeting with all of her care team to make that decision, and she hadn't done any of the things they said that she was supposed to do. So my son is a pastor, and I just told he and my daughters to go ahead and plan the funeral because I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it, and I knew they'd do a wonderful job. And then we kind of decided that instead of meeting with the whole group of providers, we would meet with one neurosurgeon that we trusted the most. He had the most experience. And we had a really wild thing that happened. He came in after surgery at 9 o'clock that night. We'd waited for him. My 3 adult children were there so that we could make this decision. And he walked into Sarah's ICU room with me, and he asked me if anything had changed. And I said, well, today kind of a weird thing happened. I was holding her hand and talking to my daughter, and just concerned that we were making a decision too soon and praying about it. And Sarah strummed the back of my hand with her fingers. That's the first thing she'd really done, and I couldn't tell that it was intentional at all, but it was Sarah. I mean, that's what she always does. She can't hold your hand without strumming it or scratching it or shaking it or something like that. And I told my daughter, I started crying, that I just hope that whatever happens, we have a very clear understanding of what we're supposed to do. And when he walked in, then he walked over to Sarah and he grabbed her arm and shook it really hard. And then he leaned down to her ear and shouted in her ear and said, Sarah. And she opened her eyes and turned and looked at him. And he said, he looked at me, he says, has she been doing this? And I said, no, she hasn't been doing that at all. And so he yelled, Sarah, move your thumb. And she trummed her fingers the same way she'd done with me that I just told him. They said, not your fingers, your thumb. And she goes. And he literally started jumping up and down. This man that had been doing this for 35 years, he said, well, I've never seen, this is amazing. Well, I don't, he says, it's almost a miracle. Well, you know. And I said, you mean a miracle? He said, well, I guess if you want to call it that, it is. He said, this changes everything. He said, this changes everything. He says, you've got to leave her on the ventilator. I think she's going to get well. And just over the next few weeks, Sarah really doesn't remember till she got in acute rehabilitation, but they just kept getting excited and saying, we've never seen anything like it. Within 3 days, she was talking in complete sentences. She wasn't remembering much. She was calling people by the wrong names, but she would have intelligent conversations with them. And it just went on and on and on until we got her to acute rehab. And I'll let her, she remembers that.
Yes.
Yes.
Isn't that-
Yes.
So Greg and our children were wonderful. Just being there the month, I mean, it was 2 months. So, and you all were fantastic to Greg here. Just very kind to him, so thank you. But the last 2 weeks I was in the hospital, I remember what I had for breakfast every day. I had fruit and yogurt and an egg. That's what I had for breakfast almost every day. I remember people who came during the night and sat with me because I had to have somebody 24/7, and I remember I had to have somebody walk me anywhere. So that's mostly what I remember. I also remember them telling me everything I couldn't do, and it kind of made me mad. So I was determined. I wanted to be determined and have a good attitude. And I'm a Christian, and I wanted to reflect Jesus with my words and my actions. So that was our regular prayer. Oh, Lord, help us that we would look like you and act like you and be grateful, be thankful, and, to walk through that. So I was in the hospital 2 more weeks and then came home. And I have to say, when I came home, I was in a wheelchair. So this is a huge thing that I'm walking. It's a blessing. But Greg pushed me through the front door in a wheelchair, and Tony and one of the other security, one of the women, one of the shorter women, when I was being pushed through, they stood up and applauded.
Yes,
So
good.
I started crying, and many of you have been that kind too. So thank you for your kindness, encouragement, and prayers.
Thank you both. so much.
Say one more thing.
Yes.
I'll just tell you one short thing. Sarah just mentioned that she's determined. And if any word could describe my wife, determined would be one of the first ones I would think of. And the reason that she had to have somebody with her 24 hours a day was that when she was even in intensive care and then later in a little lower level of care, she had a trach tube in, she had a drain coming out of her brain, she had several things, and, a nasogastric tube. And they had restraints on her because she kept waking up enough and she would try and pull them out. So they had typical restraints. In 3 days, she figured out how to get out of the restraints. And she pulled the tubes out, and they would have to call teams in to put everything back in. And so then they put this big rolling camera like you see in casinos and every place. It sat over her bed with the idea she was right beside the nurse's station, that they could see her being a bad girl, and they would run in. Well, that didn't work. She pulled everything out again. So,
I don't remember that.
yeah, and she was a fall risk, and they would have the sides up on the bed, and she would, with all these tubes in her, she'd grab the side of the bed and throw her leg over, and she was going to just leave. She was done with that. So they finally had to have aides stay in her room 24 hours a day because she was a fall risk to keep her from getting out of bed. But that served her well since. She is determined, determined, determined.
We are thankful to be home.
We are thankful to have you here, and we are so thankful for your recovery and especially for sharing your story. Thank you so much. Let's give her a hand, and him too.
By the way, you all should have gotten a Valentine in your box at Valentine's Day. And I said, what's the backstory? Well, the backstory is your family and one of your grandchildren is in a French immersion school, and I was so grateful that the way the community responded and welcomed you folks here. The whole school made Valentines for everybody here at 7500 York. Now, I'll tell you what, folks, that's the cooperative spirit. That's the cooperative spirit. And you folks, thank you so much. We are glad to have you here.
Sarah, with her cane, delivered almost all of them.
Did you deliver them? Yeah.
She wanted to be sure everybody got it.
Thank you, folks. We are so appreciative.
We'll go out that way.
Well, okay, we're not going to be able to top that action, of course. Yeah, that's just amazing. It's just amazing. And I just lift that up as a sense in which we welcome one another and help one another and be sensitive to the needs of folks round about us. We've got some things we'd like to share with you tonight, some important things about upcoming recruiting of members and key tasks around the community and some other business as well. So our first presentation tonight will come from the chair of the Property Committee, George Sverdrup. George is past president, past board member here, and I tell you what, I'm just tickled that he is the chair of the Property Committee, and he's been doing a great job. That whole group has done such a fine job shepherding us through some really complicated times. And George has a presentation he'd like to make. So I'll give you the mic, George, and take it away.
Thank you, Rich. Good evening, and hi to those of you on 990. I am used to having the microphone on my lapel. I know that I'm supposed to keep this close to my mouth, but I'm not used to doing that. So I trust when I forget that you will tell me to do it. Those Valentines, Kathleen and I had one of those Valentines in our box, and it showed a couple and who it was from, and it wasn't one of our grandkids. And I wonder if this was on a Friday, I'm not sure. And we thought, well, this obviously has gone to the wrong person. What are we going to do? So we said, we'll wait till Monday, and we'll go down to Kathy Hall and tell her about this, and maybe she can figure out where this is supposed to go or announce it and show it on 990. Well, then we took a walk in the hallways and saw that we weren't any more special than any of you. It seemed that everybody had one of these, so we knew we didn't have to do that. Well, this evening I'd like to briefly talk to you about 3 opportunities for volunteering at the co-op, volunteering being a key aspect of our membership. The first is on the Landscape Committee, chaired by Betty Stacy. This is a group that does wonderful work, and they are hoping to attract some new members at the volunteer fair for this coming year. What I'd like to do is to read from their Landscape Committee charter to give you an idea of the kinds of things they do. First of all, the purpose is to provide vision and strategic guidance to the cooperative on landscaping of the grounds and our trees. The second part of their purpose is to ensure that 7,500 grounds are well maintained and hazard-free. Well, with purpose like that, who wouldn't want to be on such a committee, right? Their functions: design, plant, and maintain all planters. Haven't they done a wonderful job on that? It's just amazing. Second, monitor and recommend work on the property to keep the grounds well kept. Third, organize weed and chat to keep the planters well maintained. Next, care for the current landscape design and addition of trees to provide for the canopy over the years. And lastly, particularly this year, oversee aspects of the implementation of the cooperative's 5-year landscape plan. Currently, this is restoring the hidden garden. The rest of the 5-year plan is temporarily set aside due to finances. So that's just a summary of the purpose and functions of the Landscape Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Property Committee. And I hope that you'll consider talking to them more, learning a little bit more about it, and perhaps signing up for that. The Property Committee has a second subcommittee, and this is called the Refuse Management Committee. How many people know about this committee? If you do, raise your hand. Well, I'm really impressed. Maybe a quarter of the people. This is a committee that is an outgrowth of the organic recycling pilot program and has been approved first by the Property Committee, then by the Board of Directors, and we're now in the process of working to staff the committee and to find a chair for the committee so that we can get it going. So let me read a little from the charter of this committee. The purpose. The purpose of this committee is to support the Director of Property in the education of the members of 7,500 York Cooperative on the components of Hennepin County and Edina waste management regulations and in guidelines unique to 7,500 York. The committee further sees its mission as being supportive to the Director of Property and trash management. What's the scope of authority? The committee is designed to be a support and educational tool for management and will not communicate with trash haulers or the city or the county except to clarify regulations for the education of its members. You'll notice within the scope of authority here, there's no dumpster diving. If you become a member of this committee, you're not going to be required to get into the dumpsters and pull things out. I want to assure you of that. Now, their functions. There are 7 of those that I'd like you to know about. The first is to annually review a pamphlet that we all received, Guide to Waste Disposal at 7,500 York Cooperative, and amend or update it as appropriate to meet Hennepin County or City of Edina requirements. 2, to hold yearly retraining sessions for all members, that's co-op members, on specific waste management requirements for our cooperative. 3, to establish a trained recycling ambassador corps. You have an opportunity to become an ambassador if you do this, who are very familiar with best practices for mixed and organic recycling to assist members who may have specific issues. 4th, to reach out to new members through 7,500 York initiation sessions to distribute the guidelines, and individual organic recycling bins and bags if possible. Fifth, to coordinate messaging through the 7500 York portal, 990 York Times, and to continually stress a new norm for responsible communal living to include sustainable trash sorting. Number 6, we're almost there. To assist in communication in the trash rooms through improved signage to maximize compliance with good trash sorting. So this is to assist in communication, no trash talk. Number 7, to assist the Director of Property in evaluating and improving our trash management system. So this is a brand new committee, has not yet met. They don't know yet when they're going to meet. They don't know yet how often they're going to meet, because it depends on how this is structured and how they'll work with Michael Ordorf. So this is your opportunity to get in on the ground floor and help shape this committee and what it's going to be about. So I hope that you will think about that subcommittee. And then finally, the property committee. We have 2 people going off the property committee at the end of April, and so there are 2 openings for 3-year terms on the property committee. Let me tell you a little about the property committee. The scope of authority: working with a director of property, make assessments of the current state of the physical facility and grounds, and provide reports and recommendations to the board on such matters, including replacement, repair, and new elements, and oversee 2 subcommittees, landscape and refuse management. In our charter, there are 5 functions. First, make recommendations to the board regarding capital expenditures and operating expenses related to property. 2, assess the property needs and make recommendations to the board regarding improvements to the landscape, building, equipment, emergency processes, and refuse management. The third function, provide guidance to management on implementation of property-related items approved by the board. 4, support management in addressing matters of day-to-day operation of the physical plant, as seen by the committee. So when we see something, we can go to management and say, this is what we see. We think you need to be looking into this, and they'll do that. And then 5, provide guidance and oversight for 2 subcommittees. So as you think about this opportunity, the vacancies are being created by Ron Tullifsrud and Dick Palinka, leaving the committee after each serving faithfully for 3 years and really doing a great job. What makes a good member of the property committee? Let me say, you do not have to be a retired engineer or somebody who's worked in the trades during your life. That's not required to be a good member of the property committee. What is really helpful? First, somebody who will support the need to invest in the repair and replacement of equipment and the facility for the good of the entire cooperative, not just thinking about ourselves or specific groups, but the whole cooperative. 2, curiosity. If you're on our committee, this is an opportunity to learn, because every month we talk with Mitch and Michael, and we learn more about how the different systems operate and what the issues are. And we really get to start to understand what's happening with all the systems that make for fine cooperative living here. So curiosity. Second, being a good listener. Because there's a lot of material coming, and being able to sit and listen and work to understand it and not be too quick to speak, but quicker to listen is a good thing. And that's probably good for every committee, isn't it? Next, to be collegial. As we work around the table in the boardroom, a lot of different issues come up, and we try to work at supporting one another. Next, commitment to prepare for the meetings. A lot goes on in our meetings, and we expect that when people arrive at the meeting, they will have looked at the information packet and be ready to participate. I've just got 3 more here under what makes a good member. be able to come to a decision and state the reasons for a decision. Now, we will take as long as necessary and even defer to the next committee meeting if necessary for us to get what we believe is an appropriate and a good understanding of a matter. But having said that, we also know that for the mechanical, electrical systems that we rely on, that we need to be able to come to decisions. Most of the time, that's a decision on whether or not to recommend something to the board, because it's the board that makes the final decisions. And often that will mean there are many times when we'll just put it up to a vote and it will be 7-0 or 6-1 or something like that, and we move on. But there are many times where we'll go around the room and every member will be asked to give their opinion and why. And now sometimes somebody will say, I just don't know. And there's grace. That's okay. But we need people on the committee who are able and willing to do that. Next to last is use email to communicate. If you're on the property committee, we have a lot going on, and we do a lot of communication by email. And the last item that makes a good member is the ability to enjoy the committee experience and to have fun, because it can be a lot of fun in this committee. Now, if you become a member, what should you expect? We have an informal breakfast in the York Room the Wednesday before our monthly Monday meeting. 2 days later, by Friday, a printed information packet is delivered to all the participants for the Monday meeting. And then on that Monday, the second Monday of the month, we have a 2-hour meeting. During that meeting, we have discussion. We might provide guidance to management, or we might make some decisions about what to recommend to the board. During that time, you'll have the opportunity to interact with Mitch Ohlendorf and Michael Ordorf, and a lot of back and forth. You could expect 3 to 4 special meetings during the year, often with the board on some of these issues that are bigger projects or more complicated. We like to have a session where we'll bring somebody in to explain it to us, and then we like to have the board there and often the chair of finance so that everybody can hear the material at the same time. And if you are on this committee, we go on field trips. Yes, this last year we were on top of the roof. We've been to the boiler room 3 or 4 times and the North Plaza. So this is an exciting committee, and I hope that you will consider carefully wanting to join us. Thank you.
Those folks really, they have been working very hard, I'll tell you. And like all of our committees, I want to tell you what George laid out, what makes a good member of the property committee, what to expect. I have a copy of that, and he's got a copy of that. I think those of you who serve on committees should have a copy. That's a model for every committee. Just really outstanding of how to make committees run and to do them well, to function well, to organize well, to have fun, to learn a lot. I want to lift that up. I think that is really important. Thank you so much, George. I'm going to leave that right there. And speaking of the property committee, all of a sudden you saw in the text yesterday and then again today that 6 o'clock tonight we shut down the heat in the building. And the reason they need to shut it down, we've been talking about the boiler since Julie and I moved here 6 years ago. I think they were talking about them long before that. The boilers are struggling, of course. They need to work on the tank that takes water to and from the boilers. They've got to take the piping off so they can get that to run correctly, and they need to do it now. This can't be put off. It's got to be done. And so when finally we got a little warmth in the area, they decided tonight was the night. They need to shut it down tonight so the water will somewhat cool down, because when they take it apart tomorrow, what they don't want to have happen, of course, is boiling water coming onto the workers. They've got to cool the boilers down so by tomorrow they can get at it. So tonight, what should you expect? We think the building should stay just mostly all right. Throw an extra blanket on your bed. put an extra sweater on. Do not turn your oven on and open your oven or start your stove for heat. Now, you may think I'm joking about that, but I am not joking about that. That's the last thing that anybody should do. That's dangerous, puts you in jeopardy, and can put the whole building in jeopardy, so we don't want you doing that. But we'll cope as best we can, and just a matter of paying attention. By tomorrow, we'll have the heat up and running again. That's Dave.
I was going to say that because of changes that have been made here, we do have hot water heaters now. So even though the heat is off, you will have hot water. And the other thing is because we replaced the steam heated rooftop units last summer, they're now gas fired. So the air coming into the building that blows into the hallways will be heated. So you're not without heat. You're just without heat in your unit.
That's right. It's the apartment furnace in your that won't work. So just know that. So, we'll cope. We'll make it happen, all right? Everybody understand the issue? Yes. Very good. By the way,
there are 2 stacks that are going to be without water from noon to 1. We got another message.
Oh, interesting. Which stacks are going to be without?
43 and 45.
Okay. So stacks 43 and 45, be careful of that and watch out for tomorrow, huh? Noon and 1 tomorrow? Well, it's all happening at once. What a deal, huh? We'll take it in the chin at one time and away we go, huh? All right. Thank you for that, Linda. I didn't know that. I wanted to just say to all the people, especially the RAC committees and all the work February's been a very fun and interesting month. Thanks to everybody who's made good things happen. I want to especially make a shout out tonight. I hope all of you got down to see the workshop open house. Did you get down there and get your name in and have coffee at a donut hole? And what I tell you, that's one of the most interesting places in the building, isn't it? So thank you to all of you folks who do that. We appreciate that so very much. And what a service to our community. That's part of our what it means to live in community and do well for each other. That's very helpful. The snow removal procedure, Mitch tells us, is working mostly all right. We've been very fortunate. It's really interesting. When we moved here 6 years ago, we came in the middle of piles of snow. We haven't seen hardly much snow the last 2 years. So we've been able to keep that cost relatively contained. But thankfully, those of you who are moving your cars outside, we appreciate you doing that so very much. All right, workshop, snow removal. All right. On the handout I gave you tonight, by the way, I always people get confused who are new, and I just want to make sure. When we had some people come the first couple times to be introduced, they said, Rich, are you going to go through this whole agenda? No. That's the board agenda for the coming meeting on Wednesday. But on the back side of that is a copy of something I wanted to call your attention to. It was an invitation to the 3 committees who work, or the board and 2 committees who work primarily in the reserve study program. We had a meeting last Thursday afternoon. We put it on 990, and one of the members said to me today, Rich, that was a great idea to put it on 990. I watched, and it was very interesting. That was Mitch's idea, saying, Rich, let's put it on. Let's practice putting some things up on 990 so people can watch along and have a sense of what's going on. We held this event because I suspect the reserve program is one of the 2 most important programs, important things we do here, the reserve study, of planning ahead for the future, setting aside funds, of planning out projects immediately in a 5-year plan, all stretching out to a 30-year plan. Now, as people come on the board, or they come on the property committee, or they come on the finance committee, they don't always understand. I'll tell you, it took me 2 or 3 years. I kept looking at this and trying to figure out how does this all work. I'm still not a genius about it, but I have a sense and understanding. The joy and the beauty of it all is we have dedicated, and we've said to ourselves in our budget, no more are we going to let that reserve study or that reserve finances just be at the whim of whether we could afford to do it or not. We are going to every month set aside monthly reserves so that we're ready to do as best we can for the projects that come along that face the board and that face the finance committee and the property committee. So that was terribly important, and if you'd like a copy of the reserve study, we'll get some copies out. Just send me an email, and I'll see that you get one. But I wanted to thank everybody who participated, and I'm glad we could get it up on 990 so folks could watch it. It was not a dynamic meeting, and I hope it didn't put you to sleep, but it was a terribly important meeting, and it's something that the board and the two committees, the property committee and the finance committee, have to continually renew and think about. Every year we do some planning, we do some reordering. The projects are not set in stone, they're moved around as necessary, and we've got to be nimble, but we start to set aside some funds. So I just wanted you to be aware of that was held, and hopefully some of you caught it on 990, so you could watch right along with us. All right. Unit inventories. The first floor is starting our unit inventories this week, and the second floor, your sign-up sheet is out. I noticed tonight it was on the security desk stand out here. Someone, Rhiannon Leaf, our vice president, said, Rich, one of the members talked to me and was confused about what this was all about. She said, well, don't the maintenance guys know all about this? And Rhiannon said, no, this is not particularly a maintenance function. This is a function of the board and administration to steward and to take care of the property of this community. We have in those big files in there lots of paper about what happened over the years with people's units and what people put in them and all that, but they're pretty inaccessible, and we don't know if we're up to date on what's in all of our units. A reminder to all of us that we do not own our units, that we rent from ourselves, from the business, from the co-op itself, and that the stuff that's in our units, that is property of the cooperative that we all own together. You've upgraded, some of the things in your area, but we don't have an accurate record of what everybody's done. So we're going to be, as Mitch outlined, and you've seen, we're going to be going through each unit and doing a walkthrough. Linda, you were one of the first ones they did, and you had a good time. And it was good for her, she said, to be there because she was able to talk to our software engineer who's coming in to do the inventory. And so this is not a maintenance function. This is an administrative function. This is a stewardship function of the property we own together, so we know what we have. We know how it's going to be changed. We know when things need to be attended to. And as people ebb and flow, you know, about 2 or 3 years ago, we were doing up to 40 and to 50 unit renewals each time. We slowed down a bit, but we need to catch up and make sure we understand what's going on. So when it's your floor's turn, sign up. Probably be great to be there to meet this fellow. I'm just interested. We're going to see him next week. I'm interested to meet the guy. It says don't feed him because he likes cookies. So don't do that. But this is one of the benefits of the board put together the software package that's starting with the calendar you're using and all the other things. We're starting to see the fruit of the money we've invested to do good stuff with our high-tech stuff that we can put together. So our software started to pay off. And all this stuff will be entered into the software. So we'll have an accurate record of what's in all the apartments in the building. So I want you to be sure to understand that and make sure you pay attention to that and sign up when it's your turn and your floor comes up. You've seen on the bulletin board, and Mitch announced the other day, that longtime staff member Brad Wright will be retiring now. And there's going to be a little ceremony or a little reception for him Tuesday, I think it was, wasn't that right? Tuesday in the late morning, stop by and say hi to Brad. Tell him thanks for all the good things. He did some great things, helped us out when we were first new here. So we want to be sure to thank him. I've been thinking about that in terms of the stability of our staff. A year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, we all, even longer than that, we started to think, does the cooperative, do we have the expertise, the time, and the money to run our own human resources program? And the decision was made as we were floundering, trying to run it by ourselves as a bunch of lay people. We needed to do something that was going to be dramatic, that would help us to give our staff, our employees, a much better deal than we could afford with professional management that was part of our community. So we made the hard decision to migrate our staff over to Ebenezer Management Services, and they are taking, they manage our staff on our behalf. No, they manage their staff. We enter into an agreement with Ebenezer. They provide the people for us. One of the things that I continually look back on, and I remember when the HR vice president from Fairview came and talked to the board and talked to the folks as we were getting ready to migrate our employees. She indicated that when they do stuff like this, when they migrate the employees from a local community into their Ebenezer system, or maybe even to a Fairview system, that we could expect in the first 6 months to a year to lose up to half of our staff. In the first year we did this, we lost one staff person. One. And Brad now will be retiring as after 18 or so years. What does that say? That says we have a staff that enjoys working here. They enjoy you. They enjoy being a part of this community. These are good jobs we provide. Friends, we run an $8.5 million business, and we provide employment for families up to 30, plus the dining room staff. We provide opportunities for families and people to make a living. And you know something? They like being here. And I keep hearing stuff. Rich, our maintenance staff is doing great. They're polite. They're on the ball. Our other staff, I just want to tell you, we sweat a lot of bullets about that. We lost a lot of sleep over that. But I'll tell you, it was the smartest thing we ever did. And it's showing that and the stability of our staff and our community and able to do that. So I just want to lift that up to you tonight as well. Okay, now on to the board meeting. Just depends where the last Wednesday of the month hits and the last Sunday of the month hits. It hit this time where again this meeting comes ahead of the board meeting on Wednesday, the last meeting of the month. The first thing we'll look at in the current topics, and you can see that on your board agenda, is the consent to action the board took on the van repair. This was a complicated procedure. Well, maybe not so complicated, but it took a lot of study and a lot of work to figure out what to do. We have identified two major problems with our van. We had some body problems that needed to be done and some mechanical work that needed to be done. I think we've got about 60 to 65,000 miles on the unit right now. So the question is, what do we do to fix it? Because the repairs are not cheap. The repairs for these two major items to the van will run us about $21,000. So the question is, do we look at, and between the administration, the property committee, the board, as we kick things around, what makes sense? And the van committee, we said, what makes sense? We had some options. Do we buy a whole new van? Well, let me tell you, a new van runs between anywhere from $120,000 to $140,000 to do that van, depending on how we fix it up and how we configure it and whatever. So we've got a major expense. We've got some of the money for that in the reserve study, but we felt we needed some time. Some folks on the finance committee said, let's take a look at leasing. And the van subcommittee said, yeah, leasing sounds good. They asked us to take a look at that, and of course the staff did. The leasing option came to almost as much, some $20,000 or more a year. So that cost us about the same amount to buy a new van as to lease it for 5 years. So when everybody put their heads together, went through a number of looks, and a number of committees and people who looked at that said, let's put some money into the van. Let's see if we can stretch out its usage. It's not going to drive, to the North Shore. It's going to make its way all around the neighborhood. It's a moving billboard for 7500 York. And so the decision was made, and the recommendation came down. It was approved by the property committee, and then approved by the board by consent, by email. And we'll affirm this at our meeting, that we put that repair money in. So we're repairing the van, and we hope we can get some lengthy use out of the repaired van. Now, here's the beauty of the whole thing. You've noticed that we've not been without a van, right? Because we got to the folks next door. I checked with Mitch, and I talked to him on the telephone. I said, Mitch, what's it going to cost us to use the van from next door? And he said, Rich, it was a vestige of goodwill. It's going to cost a handshake, a tank of gas, and a cleaning when it's all done. That's all they want, for us to use their van. Now talk about ways we start to think about using one another's stuff and how we can help each other. Now we've got to remember, that facility over there, though it sits on our land and they pay us lease money for that, that's not our business. That's Ebenezer's business. But because we're in the same management company, we know a lot of the same folks, we're able to make just good relations. And I thought to myself, I'm glad to hear that. A handshake, a tank of gas, and some cleaning. That was a good deal for us while our van's getting worked over the next couple of times. So just wanted you to know that. That's very helpful. All right, so we got to do that. We've got, again, we'll have legal items that will come before the board that you members start to think about, whether it's changing your ownership certificates, whether it's approving new members who are coming into the community. That's part of the important things that the board members need to be about. We will hear reports from committees and task forces, and I haven't worked through my whole packet yet. It came out on Friday night. I've been running around doing other stuff. Now I get time to do my homework and get ready for the meetings. But we'll have some motions that will come from your committees, the committees you're on, that we'll consider, we'll talk, we'll struggle with them, hopefully we'll make good, solid decisions. But that's what you elect us to do, to make those things on your behalf. And we'll hear a report from our management company, from Ebenezer Management Services. There's a rep that comes here every time, and they bring news, insights, ideas that come up. So that, they were telling us in the first few years of this place's existence, they had an attorney at every board meeting. I wonder what that cost. They had an attorney at every board meeting. Now, we're not, these guys, we don't fight too much. We look at each other and we laugh and we have a good time. And I appreciated George's comment about if you don't have fun together and you don't be collegial, you got a problem. We've got a collegial board that works hard. I'm glad we don't have to pay an attorney to come and sit in our board meetings every month. But that's what they did in the early years. That was a big deal, and that was very interesting when they formed the cooperative. So, all right, that's all I got. Questions, comments, ideas we should do. If you've got something that's smarter than the rest of us can come up with, put it in an email and send it to me. But where's the other mic? Is it around here somewhere? You got it, Marty?
Yeah, I was just wondering how many members are you considering for that waste management subcommittee?
I don't know, George. What do you think? Is it a 7-member committee, if it can be, or I'm not sure.
It doesn't have to be 7 members. It's not a standing committee, so it's yet to be determined.
Yep. That's really good. That's going to be a very important. That's a you will make decisions on that committee that will affect all of us and how we manage the waste. That is a huge expenditure in this building. Just think of it. Not only the garbage and the organic recycling, but the regular recycling, that costs us a lot of money. So if you have an interest in that, you will be able to make some really key decisions and help use your brains to be a part of that committee. Thank you, Marty. Appreciate that. Yeah, Linda. There, can you grab that mic? There you go.
Thank you. I would suggest, as you consider having your unit inventoried, I asked the gentleman if they would like a list of the things that I had done when I moved in, and I knew exactly what I had done. It was 4 years ago. So when he walked in the door, I gave him a list, and he took it when he left. So I think it was helpful to them in
Prepare ahead of
just
time.
looking at
Yeah,
everything.
very good. That's a great idea. If you made some upgrades when you moved or made some upgrades along the way, be sure you write those down and identify yourself and your unit so that can be entered into the computer model. Yep, that's a great idea. Yep. Anybody else? All right, we'll talk amongst ourselves. We'll kibitz at the end. Thanks for coming, everybody. Oh, appreciate it. All right, you got something brilliant, Dave. He's got something.
Brilliant. You know, thanks to George for talking about the roles of those committees. I know in a couple of months here we got sign-ups for committees coming up, and I just want to pitch something that I haven't heard anybody else say. The committees are very important because they help steer what happens in this building. If we had no committees, this would be a pretty boring apartment building with nothing to do. But the thing I wanted to say was, I've been on a committee, I've been on the board, and it's just an excellent way to meet people in the building that you may never have met before. And if you serve with them on a committee, you will get to know them very well on a very good level. And I think that's a really big benefit of being on a committee, too.
That's for sure. And by the way, thank you, Rack. Just think of how many people are involved here. What is it I hear from new members who come? They live somewhere else. Nobody said anything to anybody. Nobody did anything. Look at all the good things that happen when people participate. So 2 things at the end. Jill Hunt dropped these off my bed. York socks. She thought I should have a pair of York socks. I tell you, I got a kick. I told Jill, thank you. I appreciate that. And then the other thing is I couldn't resist. I had one of these at Christmas time, but I'll do this now. I hope all of you, if you take the Tribune, read Pickles. You read Pickles in the funny paper? They write about us all the time. I don't know why, but they do. So Earl is sitting with his daughter now. And Earl says to her, your generation is pretty handy with modern technology. But my generation, we can do things you young people can't. Things like cooking from scratch, sewing clothes, canning fruits and vegetables, making crafts. And she says, but Dad, you can't do any of those things. He said, yeah, no, not me personally, but your mother can. There you go. Good night, everybody.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'd say so. Where's the other mic? Over here.